I am going to open the public hearing for the 2020 budget for Town of Clermont. I would like to read the notice, please.
Yeah, I knew that. Okay, public notice. Notice is hereby given that the preliminary budget of the Town of Clermont for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2010 has been, that's wrong. I hope I didn't put that in like that. 2020 has been completed and filed in the office of the town clerk located at 1795 Route 9, Clermont, where it is available to all interested parties during the regular hours of the town clerk. Further notice is given that the town board of the town of Clermont will hold a public hearing at 6:45 p.m. on Monday, November 4th, 2019, prior to the regular board meeting. At the public hearing, any person may be heard in favor of or against any item or items contained therein. Pursuant to town law, the proposed salaries are hereby specified as follows. Supervisor, $5,500. Town council, 4 members, $2,500 each. Town clerk, $7,000. Town justices, 2, $5,600 each. Tax collector, $4,600. Superintendent of highways, $51,543. Code enforcement officer, $11,000. Assessor, $15,270. By order of the Clermont Town Board.
Thank you, Mary. Before I open the floor for comments, I'm just going to run through the highlights of this budget. We really don't have a whole lot of highlights because there's no major purchases or expenditures slated for this coming year. The taxable tax rate for the town is dropping because of the reassessment from 47.5 cents per thousand taxable assessment to 42.76 cents. So your actual taxable value does go down in this upcoming budget. The total amount budgeted for the town, general and highway, is $675,441. Total revenues for the town, $503,207. Total appropriated reserves is $28,000. And the total amount appropriated from fund balance, the balance of the budget, is $39,654, which is a reduction from last year. The amount to be raised by taxes is the same as it has been for several years, at $104,580. With this budget, there is a 0% tax increase. And I just want to point out that I did look back. The last time that we increased taxes was 2008, which I think for town tax, or town tax bill, which is the only thing we really have control of as a town board, 2008 was the last increase. So going on 11 years with a 0% increase, I think is phenomenal. And it's just I think good budgeting, good revenues, and holding down the expenditures. It really makes a difference. The other highlights through the budget, which really are some minor increases in salaries. I'm going to point these out because anytime we change salaries, I always like to point them out, even though small or large. The highway superintendent received a 2% increase in his salary, which brought him up to, which Mary said, $51,543. Both highway employees received also a 2% increase in their salary, in their hourly wage. The justices received a $150 increase each for the year. The justice clerk received a $100 increase for the year. The tax collector received a $100 increase for the year. The building inspector, which we talked about in detail, received a $2,000 increase due to the amount of increased hours and necessity for him to actually do much more than he's been doing. So we talked about this a little bit, and we agreed that a $2,000 increase would be acceptable. We realized the extra work he's putting in, which brings his total salary up to $11,000 for the year. The clerk received a small increase of $100. The cleaner received $150 for the year. And the only other thing we added to this year's budget was a park organizer as a stipend pay. Right now is for Jimmy Potts, the highway superintendent, for handling any coordinating stuff that needs to be done with the park to help out, as far as putting hoses down, moving stuff that's not part of his job description. So we're slating $1,000 stipend pay for that for the year. The tax revenue, sales tax revenue, we did increase by $20,000. Our projections for this coming year, if they stay, where we are now, we'll still receive much more than that, but we had room to increase the sales tax revenue prediction to $20,000. And we also increased what we're putting in the highway equipment reserve by $5,000 to bring that to $50,000 for next year's budget to put away for purchases, which we obviously put money in there every year. So when we have to buy a truck, we don't have to go out for bond. We increased that to $5,000. Other than that, the budget is pretty small. No big expenditures, again, like I said. And with that being said, I'd just like to open up for any additional comment that I might have forgotten from the board before I open it to the public.
Yeah, you covered most of it.
Okay, at this point, I will open it up to the public for any public comment.
Hearing none, I move to close the public hearing.
Just one question, we didn't receive
What
any
is
written
that?
comment. We didn't receive any written
No.
comment?
No.
Okay. If there's no other public comment, I'd like to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Done, thank you. We'll start our regular meeting in 5 minutes. And we can welcome our county clerk, Ms. Tanner. How are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Good, good.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we get started with our regular town board meeting tonight, we are lucky to have our county clerk here this evening, Sally Tanner. She's come down to talk to us about the enhanced license. I spoke about this last month, but she's here to do a little presentation and answer some questions.
Very good.
Thank you for joining us this evening.
Supervisor, staff, and town board. Happy to be here. I've been making the rounds to different towns since this was announced in the early spring about the deadline, just to try and let residents know and town boards know and get the word out there about the Real ID and the enhanced license. So just a little background. Real ID was born out of the Homeland Security Act after the acts of September 11th, 2001. In essence, because of what happened with people boarding the planes, terrorists boarding the planes, the federal government decided that they want to have a standardized document for people who are flying domestically. So that's what the Real ID means. New York State, in its wisdom, decided to first go with an enhanced license option, which is a little bit different. That was born out of the Western Hemisphere Travel Initiative. So that's allowable for border crossings into Canada and Mexico by land or sea. It is also Real ID compliant, meaning you can use it to fly. But so New York State, right now we have 4 different license types. Eventually we'll have 3 when we cycle through everybody. You're either going to have a standard license, which is good for driving and for identification. But it won't let you fly or go anywhere outside of, you can drive into Pennsylvania or drive to Florida, drive to California if you want, but you wouldn't be able to fly there. Wouldn't let you back into the United States if you go to Canada or Mexico by land or sea. So those are the 3 different license types. One of the scary, October 1st of 2020, so a year from last month, is when you have to have a federally approved form of identification to fly. Now, if you've heard about it on the news or you might have seen something in the mail, it sounds scary and it sounds like it's mandatory. It's not mandatory. It's entirely optional. You don't have to have it if you don't fly, if you're not planning on flying, you don't travel much, you can stick with just a standard license. If you want to get it though, you can. There are some things. So it's the federal government has decided what you have to do to prove who you are to them. So there's a whole list of things that you have to bring in order. You have to be certified and your documents have to be scanned if you either want the Real ID or the enhanced license. If you're just going to stick with the standard license, you can just come in with your money and your current license to to get that renewed. So the Real ID is free upon renewal if you want to get that. The enhanced license, because it allows you to not only fly domestically but go into Canada or Mexico, that's $30 each time in addition to your regular renewal cost. Or if you want to do it off cycle, you can do it off cycle. If you do the Real ID off cycle, it's $17.50, which is the photo fee for New York State. So that's the kind of background behind the Real ID and the enhanced license. The big thing is that it's not mandatory. It is optional. If you have a passport, you can use that to fly. If you have a passport card, even better. It's actually, oddly enough, easier to obtain a passport and a passport card because you don't have to prove residency. Real ID and enhanced license, you have to bring in 2 proofs of residency. Now, tell me about Clermont. Do you have a post office?
No.
So what's your mailing address? Your mailing address is Germantown. So does anyone here have your Real ID or your enhanced license?
Tivoli.
Oh, Tivoli, yeah. You did get yours?
Tivoli, that's where I
Actually,
was.
just renewed it this past summer.
So did you have a hard time getting the residents?
I didn't have any problem at all. no.
Okay, because sometimes in rural areas, and I've talked to the state about this, it's very hard sometimes because of the nature of where we get our mail. It might not be at our physical address, or it might not match our physical address. It's a hard concept sometimes for the legislature to understand how it works. So yeah, you had to bring in something that showed your actual physical address, like a fuel bill or your deed. If you have a pistol permit, you can use that. 2 proofs of that. They did finally concede a little bit, and they'll allow you to self-certify your mailing address, which is very helpful because most people do have at least one document with your actual physical address.
Since this is a renewal, can they look at your previous license that has your address and just?
Yes, depending on what it says, but there was a little, so if your mailing address is Tivoli, but you live in the town of Clermont, that was very confusing to DMV. So we're trying to get over that hurdle, but apparently you were successful, so that's awesome to hear. The other thing that is really, they were hung up on is name. So my license currently is Holly C. Tanner. My middle initial's not spelled out, but now they want that, which is, some people have a hard time coming up with documentation that has the middle initial on it, because my social security card didn't, my birth certificate does, but my birth certificate also said my maiden name, which is a whole other thing we'll get to in one second. So finding something that has your middle name spelled out is also, can be a burden to people. So my biggest point is leaving you information which describes the documents that you need, and then also my contact information or who you can talk to. My staff know, we try to limit people to 2 visits. If you go and okay, so maybe you don't have the right, you don't have an original birth certificate with a seal on it, or you don't have a social security card with you, and you have to go and come back again. So that's it. We don't want you to come any more than 2 times to make a trip. Because for some people, Columbia County is a very large county, and for some people coming into Hudson, it's quite the distance. So we do try to, make it so that you're only coming in twice. Yes, sir.
I've had an enhanced license for several years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on the advertisements on the TV or on the news, they were saying there's some symbol
The
that has to be
star,
on.
yes, that's an excellent
But
point.
that doesn't, it's not on mine.
No, so you're
That's
enhanced.
One question. The second
Mhm.
part of that is, will I be able to just renew that without bringing any additional information in?
Yes, okay, so 2 questions. So the first part is yes, so if you're renewing, you already enhanced or went real, you don't have to prove yourself again.
No, they didn't call
You
it
can
real,
just
they
renew
just
it.
called it enhanced.
Yours is enhanced. So enhanced license has an American flag on it. Perfectly acceptable. You do not have to go to the star. The Real ID, they chose a star. I don't know why, but they chose a star in the upper right-hand corner. But if you have the enhanced license, you're golden. Yes, you're fine. Yeah, I know the news is talking about you have to have the star on your license. They're scaring people. Not true. If you have the flag on your license, if you went enhanced already, that is perfectly acceptable for flying domestically. That is a federally
Flag down in the
approved.
corner.
Yep. Yeah, the flag's down the corner. The star they put up in the upper corner.
So question.
Yes.
If this is all basically for traveling out of the
Yes.
country.
In the
why-
country.
In the country. And it's easier to get a passport. Why wouldn't we just go with a passport?
A lot of people are getting a passport. They are.
Because I have passports, so to me, it sounds like it's more work than it's worth to try to get this. I should
It
show
is.
my passports.
And you can do that. The only thing we do hear some people say is they don't like to carry their passport book because it's bigger, it's a little bit more bulky. You can get the passport card. Passport is very easy to get. It's a 10-year document versus the 8-year document. It's a little bit more expensive, but you don't have to jump through the hoops, which don't even get me started on why it's easier to get a passport where you can go anywhere
Makes
in the
no
world.
sense.
But to fly to Florida, I have to essentially give DNA. But, you know, that's New York State
Okay.
and the federal government. Yeah, and so the other point that I need to make for people who get married and change your last name, obviously it's not going to match your birth certificate, so you have to see Mary Helen and get your marriage
That's
license.
what I was going to ask.
Yes.
Because I've had one person that needs the
Yes.
marriage license.
Yep,
And
they
that's
want
why,
to
because of the name
see.
change?
They want to see why your name is changed. And that goes for, so say you got married, you get divorced, you get married again, get divorced again, you know, all,
have to
they
have
don't
the
care,
whole
they want to
thing.
know your whole life story, yeah. Yes, they do want to see
Okay.
that. So sometimes it can be problematic for people, they don't understand. We do try to accept, like, I've seen some really fabulous marriage certificates, like from the church. Oh, they're so nice. I take those. Because, you know, depending on when you were married, you might not have your marriage license or, you know,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. So
Well,
I'll
that's
accept
good to
those.
If
Yeah.
we can't find
I've
the
even
record.
taken the birth certificates from the hospital with the feet stamped on them. Oh my God, we've seen some great stuff. So yeah, just to try and make it easier for people. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. It's your fee. So if you have a CDL, it's the same thing. You can enhance or reel your CDL. It's just your prices, the extra for the enhanced on top of the CDL prices. So
The
I,
enhanced and real is basically the same thing.
yes, the only difference is the enhanced will get you into Canada or Mexico by land or sea, not flying, land or sea. It was mostly for like border. A lot of the border counties with Canada that they did the enhanced because you do have a lot of people going back and forth. Instead of having a passport, they allowed this enhanced license thing. It just made it a little bit more complicated for people. There are some good websites. Oddly, the government has done some good websites. So actually, the state website, dmv.ny.gov, which ID write me. It's poor English, but it's a really good website. It tells you, like, it's interactive. You click on the ID that you have to bring, and then it shows you a picture and lets you know if that's acceptable or not. The TSA, the Federal Transportation website, is excellent in regards to what you need to travel, and also the Department of Homeland Security, DHS.gov. If you do go to the How Do I and click for travelers. Excellent websites. There are other federally approved documents that you can use to fly, like a passport. A lot of people have Fast Pass, which is a federally issued security identification card. So if you have those types of things, you don't have to do this. That's the biggest thing that I hear from people. Do I have to do this? So, no, you don't. You don't have to do that. So I'm going to leave you with these green sheets and the yellow sheets, Mary, and then, you know, you all are welcome to take them too, but that way you have them. Again, I'm Holly Tanner. My deputy in DMV now is Stacy Wendelkin. If I'm not available, you can ask her to help you. You know, that's the really big thing, is we just want to try and make it easy for people to deal with the county clerk office and the DMV.
Did I just understand, you say that the enhanced is good to go into Canada and Mexico, but not to fly?
Right. Well, no, not to fly into Canada or Mexico. Flying domestically, it's acceptable, but you can't fly into Canada.
Can't leave the country.
Right. You can go, like if you're driving into Niagara Falls, you can use your enhanced license. But if you're flying, you have to have a passport. If you're leaving the country, you have to have a passport.
Okay, so
If
the
you're
real,
flying.
the real ID doesn't work.
No,
So
no.
the real ID and the enhanced are basically the same thing,
Right.
except for the flag and the star.
Except for the, for land or sea into Canada or Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what the enhanced is. That's why it's extra money. It's a little extra. We call that one the golden ticket, Charlie Bucket. It's the enhanced license. It lets you do everything the real ID does, plus more. You'll also hear two things. Once we get through the cycle, if you decide that you're just going to have a standard license, it's going to have a tag on it, not for federal purposes. There's been some consternation with that little moniker on your license. the enhanced or the real ID is required for entrance into the Capitol, nuclear sites, military bases. So if you have the not for federal purpose license and you want to go down to West Point, you're not going to be allowed on the base with that. So that's just another consideration. But you can go into the post office, which is a federal building, but we had people ask that question. Can't get my mail. So there's that.
So in those cases, you would be able to show a passport and get in now, if you needed it, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll let mine expire.
Right.
What is, to renew your passport, how much is it? I couldn't,
Renew your passport is, I believe, 125. I think I bought that sheet.
125.
You can renew it with your expired passport.
Hmm?
You can renew it with your expired passport.
Yeah, but you have to pay, right?
I don't have.
Yeah, I just didn't know how much it was to
Yeah, I don't
renew.
remember. For new, it's
I know, like,
110.
your driver license, which is expired.
He has an 85 to renew, yeah.
85
And you have
to
5 years,
Identification.
once it's expired, to
Okay.
renew
I
it.
better get moving.
Before
then.
you have to start over. Yes, 5 years when it's expired for your passport.
Okay.
Yeah. And that you do on your own. You can come to me for photos. We do passport photos.
Yes.
But you renew on your own. We have the
Oh,
forms.
you do the photos?
We do the photos, yes.
Okay.
Yep,
So if we
$2.
come down to the
Motor vehicles.
motor
Yep,
vehicle,
yep.
we can get a photo
Yep.
and submit for passport.
Correct.
Okay,
Definitely.
thank you.
Definitely, yeah, absolutely. So that's pretty much in a nutshell. I don't want to keep you, it seems like it's midnight, but I know it's only like 5 after 7. Did you have a question?
Yeah, the licenses for undocumented immigrants and refugees.
Right.
I assume those are not for federal purposes
Correct.
licenses as well?
That's correct, yeah, they'll be issued the stand, that's the only option that they will have is the not for federal purpose license.
But that
Yes.
is a change that they are being given the opportunity for a license.
Yeah, it's supposed to go into effect December 13th is when that's supposed to start. There's a
This
couple of court, yeah, this year, there's a couple of court cases ongoing, so right now it's in the court system, but yeah, it's supposed to start December 13th, so we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, if it does go through, it would only be a not for federal purpose license that they would be eligible for, yeah. Any other questions?
Any other board questions? Anybody from the public have any questions for our county clerk?
Okay.
I
Well,
guess
thank
not.
you so much for your time.
Thank you for joining us this
Appreciate
evening.
it very
Appreciate
much.
it.
No, I'm happy to come down. Like I said, I've been making the rounds. I'm gonna leave these with you.
Thank
You
you.
can have the whole stack.
All right,
That
that's
and
good.
that. That's the passport fees,
Okay.
but not renewal. We'll
Thank
have to
you.
update that.
Okay, very good. Again, thank you very much for taking time to come down.
Absolutely. Thank you for the
Appreciate it.
invitation. Everyone have a good night.
All right. Okay, let's move on to our approval of prior town board minutes. So moved.
Second?
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, move on to the clerk report, Mary.
Oh.
I took
The
it, sorry.
correspondence ready, that's her. That's it. Town clerk's report, October 2019. Community house lease, $1,000. Dog licenses, $12.50. Driveway permits, $25. Hunting, decals for hunting rather, $1.38. Vital statistics for certified copies, $10. Interest, 12 cents. And community house donations, $100. Total check for the general fund, $1,149. Paid to New York State Ag and Markets, $5 for dog licenses. Paid to New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, $23.62 for hunting license. Total for October, $1,177.62.
Okay, thank you. We'll accept the clerk's report. Thank you, Mary. Mail review, what do we have?
Okay, tomorrow night is the Community House Ham Dinner with sides and dessert. They're serving from 5 to 7 p.m. and it's eat in or take out. Tickets for adults are $15 for your one helping, $20 for adults to include a second helping. 5 to 12 years of age is $5 and under 4 are free. And I don't have tickets, but you can get in, you can get tickets. There's no discount if you get them ahead, so. So it's always very good. Scalloped potatoes, I believe, ham, either carrots or green beans, I can't really remember, but it's good. Okay, so try and come after you vote. And from Office for the Aging, I believe, yes, Office for the Aging, there's a book back there, Caring for Those Who Cared for Us. And it gives you information about if you have to take care of someone in your family, what resources there are and such. And that's back on the table if you need a copy. And that's all I have.
Okay, excellent, Mary, thank you.
Okay.
Correspondence for the Web Committee. Have any comments, suggestions, complaints for the Web Committee? That's a good thing. All right. Move on to committee reports. Start with Bob.
Yeah, I wanted to report that the Veterans Day ceremony will be on Monday, November 11th. It'll start at 10 a.m. in Livingston, 10:30 in Clermont, and 11 o'clock in Germantown. And following Germantown, they invite people back to the American Legion Hall for hot dogs and drinks and stuff, and they have what they call the flag retirement, where they actually burn flags that are ripped up. So if anybody has any, they can bring them at that time.
Excellent.
That's it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Bob. Evan?
Nothing major to report. Chris and I are planning to get together sometime this coming month, hopefully, and transition some stuff.
Excellent. Okay. Chris, you got anything?
No,
All
haven't covered it.
right. All right. Let's move on. Old business. A couple things just to update the sexual harassment training. We did hold 2 events at the town hall. It was attended by everyone except for one that could not make either one, which we're making other arrangements for the training. But everybody has, like I said, except for one, has received the training and the certificate, so we will be in compliance as soon as we have the last person trained. So that went well. I appreciate Holly Hedgepath coming down from the county to do that for us. We do have a bill in there, which is a minor bill, $50 for each training, plus the mileage. So, it certainly helped us out getting everybody together, doing it in our own town hall. So we certainly appreciate that. It will be something that will be done yearly. Obviously, it does have to be done, and we do have to make updates to our policy for next year. So we will be doing that, making the updates and having another training next year on this.
Do we have to update our town policies since it's a state?
There's
regulation?
wording that needs to be put in. We'll be working with our attorney to work that into our policy, and then, we'll go from there. We're gonna try to use the counties as a template, so we don't have to rewrite a whole new policy, but it is coming down from the state to the county, then to the town, so we'll make that, change and go over that before we do anything.
My concern is that we don't put something in place where the state changes and now we have something that the
That's
town
what
is
they've
stuck
been
with.
doing on their own
Yeah.
policy, how many times already, so unfortunately, I think
Right.
that's unavoidable, but, we just have to be in compliance with their latest compliance. That's what it
Okay.
comes down to,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Okay, revenues, just want to give everybody a quick snapshot of our revenues this year. We just received the estimated mortgage tax for the second payment of the year. We get 2 payments a year. Looks like the second payment's going to be around $27,000 and change. Our first payment was around $29,000, so we're going to end up somewhere around $17,000 over budget on our estimates for the mortgage tax, which is great. We only budgeted $40,000. We're going to end up somewhere around $57,000. That certainly helps to go towards money that we anticipate taking out of our fund balance. The sales tax revenue as well has been phenomenal this year. We anticipate, if everything stays on track, with just the 4 or 5% increase over last year, which every quarter has been so far, we're going to see our sales tax revenue come in about $70,000 over budget, which is hard to believe. It's phenomenal. This year's been just great. That, along with the other 17,000, puts us about $87,000 over estimated revenues. That will help, since we budgeted around $50,000 to come out of fund balance. Obviously, we will not be taking anything out of our fund balance, and we'll be adding a little bit to our fund balance that we've used over the past few years when we didn't have these revenues, and that we used to pay for the brownfields cleanup, which is nice. So we'll put a little money back in there, which is great, all without raising taxes again, I'm gonna say it again, because some of you weren't here, we haven't raised taxes since 2008. So I think that's something that we should just make sure everybody's aware of. 2008 was the last tax increase this town has put out for the town residents, so. That's about it. Again, I always say it, I'm gonna say it every time, please spend your money local if possible. I know it's unavoidable sometimes, but if you can spend it within the county, it certainly helps the county taxes, which we don't usually see much of a difference, but we certainly see it in the town tax. It all does help out on the taxes, so we certainly appreciate it. Old business, I want to just mention, last month this question was brought up about solar, looking into solar for the backfield. I have not set up an appointment yet, but I do finally have the information from the gentleman that was here that did the solar, most recent solar farm in the town, from Hudson Valley Clean Energy, Hudson Solar. He actually participated, Mr. Irish, I believe was the name, participated in our law that we actually designed for and around the solar systems. I am going to be setting up an appointment with him, and I also am waiting to hear back from the county. I'm waiting to get the information from the county. We're in the middle of a whole but a whole energy efficiency program with a company through the county. I'd also like to set up an appointment with them as well, so we have a couple different people to talk to. I have not done that as well yet either, but I just want to make sure everybody realizes that it is in the works. By next month, we should have an update to see if this is something that's feasible, and that we are going to look into it. So we'll have an update for next month. That's about it under old business. New business, first and foremost, I think we had our public hearing. I think we should actually finalize and adopt the 2020 final budget. We had a hearing, there's no suggestions, no comments. So at this point, I'll put the 2020 final budget out for
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have one appointment to make, renewal, a bar appointment for the Board of Assessment Review. John Halteman's term expired, which we didn't realize, we didn't get it last month, expired in the end of September. So I'd like to reappoint John Halteman for the term of October 1st, 2019 through 9/30/2024.
So moved.
Second.
A little after the fact. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, that's about all I have for new business. Supervisor report, just to update. Well, first let me start out. Mary already read the election day dinner. I think I'd just like to point out, in addition to that, please, if you do come, would like to have dinner, sometimes it's very busy. I found this last year when I came. I couldn't even get in, but I did do the takeout. So if it is busy and you are here, you'd like to eat, if you can't wait or it is too busy, please do a takeout. At least, walk over, they'll make you a takeout. It's almost as good as being there, but if you take it home, it's still a very good meal. So keep that in mind. If you can't get in, if it's too busy to be seated, please, feel free to let them take dinner home. I also want to point out the Christmas event, which I just received a flyer on this year. It's going to be Sunday, December 15th, from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. right here at the Cleremont Village Green. It's going to have the caroling that we always do every year at the church next door. They're going to start at 6 o'clock, 6 to 6:30 with the Christmas caroling, and then over to the community house, and Santa will be arriving to visit with the kids. So
What's the date on that again?
December 15th. Starts at 6 o'clock with the caroling, and then afterwards, following that, to the community house for refreshments and to see Santa. So please, could we post that on the internet, or excuse me, on the website?
I didn't see it in my email, but maybe it's copied on
I'll tell you what,
You could just
I
forward it.
I could send you the
Yeah.
electronic version as well.
Yeah, that would.
I don't think I got one either.
See, I just checked my email tonight before I came. All right, so
Got lost in all the other ones that I get.
I guess the last thing I really want to mention is something that recently happened. Most of you probably have heard about this. If you haven't, it's not something we'd like to talk about, but Saturday night, late Saturday night, there was actually a homicide in Clermont, right down at Pleasant Vale Road, or the corner of Pleasant Vale Road and 9. And this is the first time in over 30 years that there's been a homicide in Clermont, which is very rare for us. But I just wanted to point out that, you know, the law enforcement reacted very quickly. I got a call very early Sunday morning when they responded to let me know what had happened. And there was, you know, a quick response by the Sheriff's Department, State Police. Even our DA was down here for himself when they did the arraignment. But, you know, it's an unfortunate circumstance that something like this happened. It's happened in Clermont. And, you know, first they just wanted to let me know as a courtesy call there was no endangerment to anybody in the town. The suspect was apprehended immediately, and everything was safe as far as that goes. But it's an ongoing investigation. I really don't want to say anything more about it, but certainly, you know, it's a shame that it has to come to something like this. But there was no health or danger to any of the public in Clermont, which is the main thing. And obviously, our thoughts and prayers go out to anybody that was affected. And part of what happened there. So, other than that, the county's been doing a lot of work on the budget. Still doesn't sound like there's going to be any reduction in taxes, which still is something I keep fighting for. We'll see what happens. I haven't seen the last final draft yet. I haven't even produced it yet, but it does seem like they're probably going to be raising the just under 2% under the cap. That they're allowed to raise taxes for the county, but that will certainly be an argument in a discussion before it's passed, and I'll be fighting for 0% because still, like I've said for years, we do not need to keep raising taxes and putting money in the fund balance. It's working itself in there like we see on our own revenues. You don't need to raise taxes on top of it just because they want to. There's a difference between needing it and wanting, and they want a bigger fund balance. We're getting it, but we don't need to compound it by raising taxes to get it. So that's my argument. I'll throw it out there again. We'll see what happens. Anything else that goes on in the county? If anybody'd like to talk to me about it, I'd be glad to update you and find out the answers if I don't have them. And be glad to talk to anybody about it afterwards. Other than that, I'd like to move on to motion to pay abstract, and then we'll take public comment.
Make a motion, we pay trust and agency number 10, vouchers 25 and 26, for the amount of $655.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Move to pay highway abstract number 11, vouchers number 103 through 110, in the amount of $4,274.66.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I move we pay general abstract number 11, vouchers 283 through 309, in a total of $4,669.16.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. One other thing before we open up the public comment, I would like to thank in advance our team, election team workers. I know it's a long day. Mary, I know it's coming here with a lot of other people at 5 o'clock or before 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd like to thank everybody in advance, and I'll thank them next month as well for the long day, the long hours, the hard work they put in to hold our elections. So it's certainly not, it's not an easy day. So I appreciate that. I think everybody should appreciate it. So thank you all that are involved. Is there any park update? Oh, well, Mary, would you like to start, please, with a park update before we do public comment? Let's put that on the agenda.
Several things that we have for the park committee. First of all, on the 17th, as you can see on our flyer posted, we will be gathering together folks from the public to go over what we've put together for the plan so far. And of special note, we'll have a session for children that Lindsay's working on. Basically, it's the PPP, Plan Your Perfect Playground for the kids, and then PPP, Plan Your Perfect Park for the adults.
Nice.
Yes. It works.
It works.
So we have that going on. We also, thank you, we have been able to purchase bulbs for the entranceway to the Hetling Park. And on November 23rd, 1 o'clock, we are planning on having a planting session. Everyone is welcome, volunteers, bring yourselves, and we will provide probably hot chocolate at that point instead of cold water like we did in the summer. And
Cold water was great.
and the rain/snow date will be the 30th. So those are the two events we have going on. And after that, once we receive the input from folks, we will meet in December to review anything new or anything that we should be changing in our draft. We'll review a final draft in January and present our work at the February town board meeting. Have I missed anything? Okay.
Excellent.
So please, feel free to join us on the 17th. There will be food and refreshments.
It's a bribe.
If you feed them, they will come. It's Planning 101.
Nice.
Yes, it really is something they teach us in Planning 101.
And there's a Facebook
Oh.
event
Yes,
for
for,
please RSVP and then you can share it.
yes.
Okay.
Spread the word.
However
You can.
Please just tell people to come.
Excellent.
And I think that
How
was,
many bulbs do we
Oh.
have to plant?
I've got 2 cases and then another box. I don't know
Are
exactly
they
what the number is.
Different bulbs or are they all? the
Different
same?
bulbs,
Well-
yes.
Okay,
I wasn't the one who did the order,
okay. Yeah, I'm just curious.
but you had the invoice earlier.
There's a lot of them in the box.
There's a lot of them in a
There's lot
box,
of
yeah.
I'm looking, I'll tell you in a
Were they purchased as a variety or were they purchased specifically with the variety that was chosen? You don't know that?
Amy was in charge of the selection. She's the expert.
Okay.
There are 500, and all it says is Brackenhurst, parentheses, yellow/orange, 16 centimeters, I guess. So I don't know what kind of bulb,
Assortment.
what it is.
Okay.
There's 500.
500.
They're in cardboard boxes, so I can't tell you exactly what they look like.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Just curious.
Oh, and Dawn isn't here, but there were emails exchanged between Dawn and Amy regarding the kiosk sign and the discussion that you had last month that having the whole thing purchased from Terrabuilt was too much. And the consensus between Dawn, Amy, and myself was that purchasing at least the board from Terrabuilt and then building our own posts and covers for it would probably be the best way to go. The Terrabuilt would last longer than any plywood or wood board that we would put together. But the posts and the cover can certainly be made locally at a much lower rate than I believe it was.
What
Another
is the-
4,000.
Quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah,
What is the significance of the board? You're
The-
talking
the-
about the backer board?
The backer board for holding the brochures and any posters and
What is the material for that?
Terrabuilt, it is, think of it like the decking, the recycle
Oh, yeah,
plastic decking. It's
Trex, like a Trex?
like Trex.
Okay.
It's a composite.
It's a that's the word I'm looking for, composite, thank you.
I deal with
You
all
do
of
that stuff.
Can you
You know
pin
something about
items
that.
on it?
Well, it will be constructed in such a way that we'll have a bulletin board portion that you can push pins into, and another that will be a permanent sign of a map of the park, the rules of the park, and then a slot for brochures. So that was,
Yeah, I think
The
there were a
general
couple of
recommendation.
ideas. I don't know if they made their way back to you at the last meeting where we some ideas about having like a vocational school or something like that, a voluntary kind of thing that.
Or
can do
scouts
things.
or some group
Exactly, yeah, okay.
to construct. That was the last bit. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, any other public comment? Yes, sir.
Hi, thank you. So my name's John Marvin. I'm your neighbor, but I don't live in Clermont. So I saw this visual when I saw you do it, I said, oh my God, that's perfect. I can show you where I live. So I'm your neighbor right here in Ulster County. So I don't know if you got the letter, my wife and I sent a letter. We went and met with I know you were there, we went to the ZBA. So we're just kind of looking for a little help, and we don't know whether it'll be at the ZBA or maybe the town board can do something. But we live directly across from Southwood. And Southwood has a special permit to have events. And the events in the 3 years that we've lived right across from Southwood seem to have escalated in number and intensity of the events. And when you live across the river, and especially if the wind is the right way, it is just thumping music, blaring, and it's a real nuisance. And we've been in touch with Sam Harkins, your zoning enforcement officer, and he feels a little bit that his hands are, enforcement issues may not be where he needs them. So that may be where the town board can come in, but I've looked at your special permit rules. I'm not really sure how it could get a special permit. It may be interpreted one way or another, but I don't really see an event allowance in your code. So that could be something that maybe could be looked at. But even if we have it, like we can live with certain events or certain numbers if they're not so many and so intense. I think they're supposed to have 8 to 10. They're at 12 to 14 already this past summer. In June, we didn't have a Saturday that we didn't have music going until 11:30 at night, just pounding. And so it would be really great if the town board could look at and confer with the ZBA about maybe putting some limits on these special permits, or whether even this special permit is allowed. Because if you even go on the website for Southwood, it's not even just the weddings, it's a resort. They have a pool, they have cabins, they have short-term rentals, they're there for the weekend. That's not so bad for us. It's really just the Saturday nights that are just, they've become intolerable, a lot of them. 2 or 3 times a year there's fireworks. One time it was at 1 o'clock in the morning. I love fireworks, but I want them on the 4th of July. So what I'm really asking you to do is to maybe talk to your town attorney, talk to the ZBA, and see if there's something that you can put in place with these special permits. First, determine, is it really an appropriate special permit to have a wedding event venue under your own code? And the second thing is, if you do, to give Sam some enforcement tools, whether it's to make them, put in your special permit code that you have to report when you're going to have events in advance, so that you can monitor how many they have, if there's a limit. So I think what happens is we got a cap at 10, but nobody's counting, so we have 14. So I'd just like to ask you to really be considerate and to look at that and see if there's a way that you can help your neighbors, which, even though I'm not in the same town, we're probably more impacted by it than the neighbors on the left, right, and
I
to the east.
did read your letter, and I will say personally, I never thought of the sound traveling across the river, but I do know from my time I spend on the river that sound does travel across the river. It just travels forever. It's the density of the water or something, but it does travel.
And it can change, and if the wind is the right way, it's just incredible, because there's really no barriers. And I know, I haven't really looked at it, but I know that you have a new sound ordinance that, for example, you could say, well, okay, if you're going to have an event, you need to self-monitor and report to us and put, sound detection devices, because it just carries over there. And it's pretty intense. And there's no question that, I forget what Sam told us, it's either 8 or 10 that they're allowed. They're definitely exceeding that. And then what you also have to look at, does an event, on Saturday, The Friday events I know are small. You can see them from my house. I can look right over and you can see there's gatherings. They're not loud. I don't care about that. But that's probably still an event too. You know, if they have a rehearsal dinner and then there's the wedding the next day and then there's the brunch the next day, that's 3 events. You know, the ones we really care about are the weddings. And so what I think probably happens too with the weddings is, you know, even if the owner really wants to keep it under control, you know how weddings are. People go, ah, it's a wedding. You know, we're only here once. We're going to go, the band's going to go an extra 20 minutes or half an hour. And, you know, it's just, that's what we live with. You know, we live with it. And it has grown in intensity over the years. So if there's anything that the town board can do to look at that, to give some enforcement powers, or even look at whether this is an appropriate special permit. Because I looked at the code, and I don't really see how this falls into any specially permitted use
Yeah,
under
there
your
is a
code.
line in the schedule of uses that lists certain types of events and says, and other similar events. And that's where it was considered.
Which one was that? Is that under commercial recreation?
I don't remember the total
Yeah.
wording of it, but there is a line in there, because I had looked at it with the
Yeah,
ZBA at the time. And it's a list of things, and it says, and other similar events. And it was considered that a wedding was similar to what was listed.
yeah. See, I looked at that and I didn't really see, and I don't know that there can be differences of opinion in the way that zoning enforcement officers interpret the code or ZBA, but I didn't really see that in there. And, you know, it's a big business. If you look on their website, their base fee just to have something on a weekend is $8,500. Then there's going to be the use of the cottages and the rental of the house, and you know they're bringing in 6 figures plus on this thing. So it's not. And what happens is, I kind of know this. I do some zoning work, and people come in and they go, we just want to cover the taxes and we just want to have a few events, because I get it. These are big estates. You don't want it to fall into disrepair. And I kind of agree with that. But then the money comes in and it's like, this is nice. Let's keep going further. And it's not something that just to offset costs. It's a business. And if you go to the website, you look at the South website, it's a business, you know, and it's a pretty big business. You know, it's definitely probably bringing in $150,000 to $200,000 of revenue a year. You know, that's my guess. You know, I might be wrong, but if you look at the base numbers, and if they're having 12 to 14 events, that's what they're bringing in.
Well, let me start off by thank you for bringing this to our attention, obviously. I have been in contact with the zone enforcement officer, the code enforcement officer, Sam.
Yep.
He told me, he spoke to you about this.
We have, yeah.
And we have talked about it, and what I'd like to do is, and I was gonna bring up to the board, when we review our policies and fees, in January, we do every year in January. I'd like to sit down and go over this and see about putting in a registration fee that allows them to register each event. That way we charge them a small fee, just put it on the books so we know they're having.
It's a great
an event.
idea, yeah.
We can also check what their approval was when they got approved for the site, if it was 8, 10, 12, whatever events they're approved for.
Right.
And that'll allow us to monitor how many they actually have. And then also for fireworks, so another one we had a discussion on, putting in for a permit to have fireworks. That way we know who's having them and when they are and how many there are, so.
And you know, I'm not saying like shut these guys down.
It's
We
not-
can
you
live
don't
with some
actually have
stuff.
to.
You know, we know that people have events or that, you know, I don't expect anything to be perfect.
Right.
But if it could be something also where we could even call up Cleremont and say, what's the schedule for July? You know, and so we know. I mean, that's helpful to us. But, you know, it's just, it really just needs to be policed. And so that it is what it's intended to be. So if they're saying we're going to have 8 to 10 events because we need to cover the taxes and keep up this it's a beautiful property. Mm-hmm. Okay, I get that, you know, but if it's just going to be a commercial enterprise that, you know, is going till 11:30 at night, you know, that's what we'd hope that we could stop.
Yeah, it's not unusual either to have something like that in place. I know Town of Livingston actually charged, I believe it was $200 per event they charge for registration fee, and they do it similar. They register every
Yep.
event, so they know what it is. So it is something I'd like to discuss, and, you know, I mean, obviously this season's over, so it
Yeah,
gives us lots of time this spring to get it in place
Exactly.
before the season kicks in.
Yeah.
So it is something we are gonna look at and see what we can do to.
And
try to
I
help
appreciate
out.
it very much, yeah.
Because it's not just you, it's anybody else that's affected by it.
Well, you know, our neighbors complain too. So I'm kind of the one designated to come over and
Well, no, I
Be the bad
totally, I understand your frustration, because if I lived right across from it, it was bothering me.
You know, and I
would feel
kind
it.
of know too, because, you're not thinking, like you said, you're not really thinking about, we're almost a mile across. It's not, it's pretty far, but there's nothing stopping that sound, and I'm originally from Rhinebeck, and, Rhinecliff and Ulster have the same issues sometimes on zoning issues, well, you're gonna do this or build that, aren't you thinking about us? And it's hard sometimes, you've got competing interests, and I understand that these beautiful estates along the Hudson, you want them to stay nice and not fall into disrepair, but I also think you don't want them to become commercial enterprises either.
Okay, well, I would just say, if you could just be a little patient, give us a couple months.
Will do.
Like I said, it's, it's not gonna anything bother you this year probably anymore, but give us a couple months, and by springtime, we should have this in effect. And Sam, if you need to contact Sam, he would have it.
Yeah, I know Sam, so,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
So,
All right.
very good.
Thanks very much, guys.
All right, thank you.
And it sounds like you got a great town going here, except for the homicide, but everything else looks good.
You can't control once in 30-some years,
When you have surplus, that's what conservative budgeting, then you get the surpluses, everybody feels good.
That's right, very good. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay,
We still have the lowest town tax rate in the county.
by far.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions, comments, public comment? Nobody? No? Okay. No other comments? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Oh, you gotta move?
I have to move
We'll do that. We'll move everything.
No, you probably got that schedule.